Serious. People who experience being held at gunpoint, what was the situation and how did you manage it? Welcome to, or back to another video today. It's Em, I hope you enjoy some real life stories. Story 1. I was working as a barback and living in a row house in a major US city. I had just gotten home from a 15-hour shift with $100 in my pocket to show for it. Because of the late hours, street parking was full up, but there was a small parking lot behind my house that usually had a few spots. We had a back door that faced the lot, but kept the door chained, so I had to take the long way. I was cutting through the alley when two guys entered from the other side, walking directly towards me. I casually crossed to the other side of the alley, but I already knew I was screwed. As I passed them, I noticed one had a bandana over his face, but they only made a minor effort to delay me in the dark alley with small talk. I kept on walking to the streetlight on the corner, and as soon as I turned into the street, I heard the two guys running towards me. I thought they were gonna jump me, so I stopped right around the corner and figured I'd at least go down swinging. They rounded the corner and froze as I brought my fist up, and then the masked guy pulled a gun. In the light, I could tell they were teenagers. The kids with the gun yelled for my wallet, and I started to reach for it and attempted to say something. I don't even know what I was gonna say, but the words caught in my throat anyway. Then he yelled to get on the ground in a way that sounded more like a movie quote than a command. It didn't really matter what he told me to do because I was frozen with my hand at my side, halfway between my wallet and my pocket knife. I couldn't stop staring at the gun. Now, I grew up around guns. My dad was a former Marine, and he taught me to shoot at a young age. I'm a gun owner myself, and I've seen and handled a lot of guns over the years. This guy was pointing a Glock at me, but by the barrel size, it had to be a .22. In the situation I was in, this should have been the last thing on my mind. But I had so much adrenaline pumping through me, everything felt like slow motion. I'm still frozen there like a statue, and that's when the other guy said, "Give me the gun, I'll shoot his butt." He grabs the gun from his buddy and levels it at my face. My dumb butt is still just standing there, wondering why this escalated from a robbery to a murder instead of doing literally anything. That's when he pulls the trigger. There's a click, and nothing else. With the trigger pull, I'm finally shaken out of my statuesque state, and I lunge at the gunman. He and his buddy turn tail and run out of there, and I turn around and walk 20 feet to my front door. As soon as I'm inside my house, I break down because I'm not a tough guy. I'm an over-analytical dumb butt who froze up and got lucky. If it ever happens again, I'll toss my wallet and run in a heartbeat. Jeez, OP, I am sorry this happened to you. I'm sure you knew this, but this wasn't the dude just trying to rob you. They were either aware that the gun wasn't loaded and wouldn't shoot you, or they thought it was loaded and the guy was fully ready to kill you. Don't feel ashamed for breaking down when you got home. That is totally understandable. I hope you were able to talk to people if you needed to after, and get the help you needed. Story 2. This was about 17 years ago. I was living in Colombia at the time, and it was very insecure those days. We had just finished high school, and I was with two friends, talking outside, a couple of houses down from my place. My friend was wearing a long-sleeve shirt and sitting in his new bike, a motorcycle, given to him as a graduation gift with the keys in the ignition. I was standing and so was my other friend. All of a sudden, two guys come around the corner and one of them pulls a gun and places it to the back of my head. I actually felt the muzzle, while the other guy just lifted his t-shirt and showed the gun he had tucked on his jeans. They said, "Give us the keys, we're taking the bike." What happened next happened very fast, but I'll explain it in slow fashion. First things first, I froze. Not playing the hero in the story. The friend that's standing had some random papers in his hands. I can't really recall what they were. And then he starts to talk fast, saying, "Oh man, you don't want to have anything to do with us? We're just some poor kids. I just got accepted into community college because we can't afford private university. These are my acceptance papers. Want to read them? We're just talking here. This bike is the neighbor's. We're just poor guys. This gold chain is a fake. We don't even live around here." And he said similar things in like 5 seconds. The other friend's sitting in the bike while the fast talker is droning on and on. Very slowly pulls the keys from the ignition and just drops them into his sleeve. The two thieves look at each other. I close my eyes knowing this is it. I'm gonna die a virgin. Next thing I know, the guy pointing at me says, "These suckers have nothing." He tucks the gun in his jeans and the other one says, "Turn around, you guys didn't see nothing." Sure, we didn't see a thing. We all turn and look to one side of the street. Then the dudes, I guess, hightailed the other way. We stay silent for about a minute, and then immediately move the bike in a hurry to my place and lock the door. My dad looks at us, and we're pale as a dead fish. We tell him, and boy is he mad. He gets the neighbor and puts me and my friends in the truck to go around the neighborhood and see if we can spot the would-be thieves. Too long, didn't read. Two friends and I are almost mugged. A friend sweet-talked her way out of that one. Somebody commented, your dad and neighbor are badasses, though, for trying to hunt down those suckers. I've seen a lot of movies where the tactic they use is basically what OP's friend did, which is the I'm not worth the time kind of thing, where they basically explain, you're not going to get anything from me, so don't run the risk. I want to say this is what I would do if it happened to me, because I'm a broke college student, so it's like maybe they would get $5 cash and a bagel punch card. But I honestly don't know how I would react. Story 3. 2016 in sunny Los Angeles, and I'm driving to the Trader Joe's 3 blocks away from my apartment to buy some iced tea. As I pull onto the street, I notice a police car following close behind me, and quickly turn on its flashing lights. I'm thinking, there's no way they're flashing those lights at me, right? I'm driving under the speed limit, my car is fine. I'm 2 blocks from home, so I turn into the Trader Joe's parking lot pretty calmly, if confused, and then exit the car to find 2 policemen angrily shouting at me, guns drawn and pointed at my head. Get down on the ground, get down now. I've never had someone point a gun at me, so I just kind of freeze in place. The policemen shout louder, livid, guns directly at my forehead. I notice other shoppers I've run into 100 times at the grocery store turn to look at me, as one policeman approaches quickly and pulls my arm behind my back, while the other trains his gun at my head. The first policeman is handcuffing me and puts my face onto the ground. He says, stop shaking, and I say, I'm sorry, I can't. And I realize I'm basically vibrating in terror, as I have no idea what's going on. The second officer checks my body for weapons, finding nothing, because basically I'm just some random dude who ran out of Tejva, and then asks if my name is blah blah blah. I forget. It's quickly determined that they were looking for someone, and I'm not that person, so they let me go. I get up from the ground and look at the store. I'm still pretty much shaking in terror, but I decide to walk into Trader Joe's anyway, and buy the iced tea. Pretty much everyone in the store is asking me what happened. My answer is pretty much that I have no idea. I just want a beverage. 10 minutes later, I'm back home, and I put the iced tea in a glass and take a drink and think, dang, why is life so complicated? I hope Trader Joe's was nice or someone else was and bought the iced tea for you. I understand my cops have to react aggressively sometimes, but this really does feel like they should have run the plates of the car and seen that it wasn't the dude they were looking for. Story 4. At a gas station playing slot machines. Illegal here in Houston, but they're everywhere. And a guy comes running in out of breath. About 10 seconds later, another guy comes in and points a gun at him. The first guy runs straight to me and hides behind me. The guy gets the gun pointed at me. I instantly start sweating and got weak in the knees. I yelled out the first thing I thought, don't frickin' shoot me to get to him, and turned around at the guy hiding and said, move, and grabbed him and pushed him to the side. In the split second the gun was pointed at me, I saw everything I ever wanted to do. Everything I've ever loved. Got a new look on life, which lasted about 48 hours, lol. Right after I shoved the guy with the gun must have had an epiphany, because he just took off out of the door, and the other guy got off the floor and walked out looking like he's seen a ghost. Probably his own. It scared the crap out of me like nothing before. Any feeling you get when you're nervous or going on a roller coaster or doing something that you think scares you, it isn't crap until you've had a gun pointed in your face. It really freaking sucked. Someone commented, in the split second the gun was pointed at me, I saw everything I wanted to do, everything I've ever loved, got a new outlook on life, which lasted about 48 hours. I've had a couple near-death experiences. This is the most accurate sentence I've ever read. Robbed at gunpoint while working in the family grocery store. I was 17. Opened the register drawer and stepped away. They were too stupid to lift up the drawer where several $100s were sitting and only got away with about 80. After they left, I realized I had wet my drawers. Somebody else then commented, I think you're allowed to pee yourself in that situation. Story 5. I was working the graveyard shift at a gas station. It was near the end of the night, so I was looking at the lotto tickets and counting tickets for my shift sheet. Dude walked in and right up to the counter. I didn't even have time to look up. He put the barrel of the gun right on my forehead. He told me to empty the till into a bag. Calmly, I told him every move I was making so he didn't freak out. When he realized it was only about $30 in cash, he told me to grab him 3 cartons of Marlboro Reds. After that, he told me he was gonna go grab a gallon of milk, and if I looked up at him, he would kill me. I laid my hands on the counter and stared at my shoes. He grabbed the milk, the smokes, and the cash and told me to turn on the gas pump. That's right. He needed to fuel up after he robbed the store. As soon as he was pumping the gas and looking away, I hit the emergency rescue button under the counter. I then jumped over the counter and locked the doors and hid. I didn't look up until I could see the flashing blue and red lights outside. What I thought was an hour was only a few minutes passing by. Dude didn't even finish filling his tank before the cops showed up. The worst part was after I locked the door and let the police in the store. I hadn't said a word until an officer asked how I was doing and if I was injured at all. I looked up and attempted to talk, but instead just threw up all over myself and the poor officer. I quit that job. Honestly, the gonads on some people constantly shock me. Like the gall to think you could ask someone to fill up your gas tank and not think they would hit the emergency button is just so baffling. Props to OP for handling that situation like a champ, even if they did puke their guts out. Story 6. I was rear-ended while driving at night. I had just gotten into town and left the airport to try and catch friends downtown. No dice, so I decided to go home. On my way, I'm at a red light and a guy hits me while I'm at a dead stop. So I get out to inspect the damage. Dude gets out of his car and aims a Desert Eagle at me, square in the chest, and asks why I'm out of my car. A woman with him pops out and screams to shoot me. I looked at my feet, put my hands up, and started to talk. I told the guy I was just checking out my bumper, but it's fine. I just got home and had a bad week. Just want to get some sleep, etc. I backed up slowly until I hit my open car door. I can tell the guy's still aiming at me, so I say it's cool. I didn't see crap, and I'm just gonna drive home. It worked. He didn't say another word to me and put his gun away. The light was red again, so I waited, and then the guy went around me, stopped in the road to check for traffic, and drove off. I got his make, model, and plate, not to mention descriptions of him and the woman. I called 911, and the cops came out of nowhere, patrolling all over town looking for the guy. I had my info and reported it to a cop and went home. 2 weeks later, they found the car, abandoned and partially burned, 10 miles away. It was stolen the night I had my run-in. Story 7. It was back in the 80s in Southern California. I was playing laser tag in the street with a friend after dark. There's a small modern business park with ramps and stairs near my house. We were running and jumping and having a great time. Suddenly, 2 police cruisers pull up aggressively and 2 cops jump out with their guns drawn on it and yell for us to drop our weapons. Our glowing science fiction sounding plastic oversized toys. We drop them and fall to the ground as they walk up to us with their guns inches from the back of our heads. The whole time we were screaming, "It's laser tag, it's laser tag." I don't really remember what happened next except for my mom being super pissed at our crotchety old neighbor from across the street. She was convinced the only reason the cops showed up was because he called them, even though he knew we were playing a game. Somebody commented, "What's funny, or not so funny, is that in Japan, they still sell realistic toy guns with no orange tip or anything. My friend and I saw some in their version of the dollar store, and we were like, holy crap. We just hadn't seen toy guns that were bright neon colors in so long." I went overseas to Asia a while back, and we certainly saw this with little kids. It wasn't too scary with the super young kids, but when it came to the older ones, it was legitimately terrifying. I could never understand when cops get mad at kids for playing with water guns, but honestly, I could see them getting confused with those hyper-realistic ones that don't have the orange tips. Story 8. Late at night, I had just dropped a buddy off at home and pulled off onto a side street. I guess I fell asleep at the wheel because the next thing I remember was a tree that I swerved to avoid, which caused me to pop over a flower bed, almost ramming through the house and inches away from a circuit breaker. Called my friend because he had a truck. He came over and there was just no way we were getting it out. I had knocked on the house several times and had prepared a note with all my details to leave behind, just in case there was damages we couldn't see. Sometime later, a car pulls up to the driveway that looks like it goes to that house. We approached the car thinking it was the homeowner. The guy comes out immediately with a handgun pointed at us. Immediately, our hands go up. We completely stop moving, and my much more used to crazy stuff friend takes over and explains what happened and why we are approaching them in the middle of the night. Guy was cool afterwards, apologized, and explained that he was just so paranoid because his pregnant girlfriend was with him and he didn't want trouble. We chat while the cops come to tow my car and take me home. I didn't really freak out, was just at a loss for words. There was really no recovery from it. I wasn't really stressed over that at all, only a totaling my car. I don't blame the guy for it. I mean, I'm a stocky guy and my friend is over 6 foot and was in pretty good shape. Not something I'd want approaching me at 3 a.m. with my pregnant girlfriend with me. Story 9. I was working at a coffee shop and our tip jar kept getting stolen from the drive-thru. Made me really mad because we weren't making that much money hourly. So any little bit on top of that was really appreciated. I was the supervisor for the shift, and I saw a girl sneaking toward the tip jar and knew exactly what was gonna happen. She saw me notice her, then ran and grabbed it and ran off. I ran out the front door chasing her, and when she saw that I was gonna catch her, she threw the tip jar down in the parking lot and hopped in a car with several other young kids that were obviously waiting for her. I started yelling at them, saying I was gonna call 911 and that I had their license plate. And a kid pulled out a revolver and stuck it out the back window at me. I didn't even really have time to process it. I just put my hands up and backed off, and they drove away. I went back and collected the $1.37 they almost made off with from the parking lot. I know it's the principle of the matter to stop her from stealing because it had kept happening, and it's just a crappy thing to do. But I definitely feel like $1.37 is not something to die over. And if your coworkers get mad at you for not chasing them, tell them they can get shot at next time for the same amount of money. Story 10. I handled it like a complete dumb butt, working overnights at a gas station. 3 a.m. sometime in December. Some guy came up to the locked doors on one side of the building and tried to get in. I was standing right next to them making coffee for the morning. So I notice he's wearing a mask on his face, and I go, "Oh man, it's cold outside, but not that cold. Weird." It's Arizona, by the way. I turn and point to the unlocked door and yell, "Go around." Then he points at me. I'm like, "WTF, man, go around." Well, he doesn't and decides to walk away. At this point, I'm beginning to think that the whole thing was odd. I checked the cameras, and sure enough, dude is pointing a revolver at me 5 feet away through the glass right at my face. And I told him to go around. He ended up going down the street 3 miles and robbing a different gas station. Felt pretty sick after realizing how close I came to possibly being injured. Too long, didn't read, ended up having a gun pointed at my face, and I didn't even realize it. Story 11. New York City, 2009. My friend and I were mugged just before Halloween. The guy demanded everything we had. I handed over all my crap. Phone, wallet, keys. My friend refused. The guy shot him in between the eyes. I watched my friend die that night. I remember the blood hitting my face and feeling numb, and then looking on the ground and seeing my dead friend. My instinct was to try and run after them, but they were gone. It was late and no one was around, really. I went to a payphone and called the cops. The cops came and put me in cuffs while the ambulance took my friend away. I was brought to the police station and questioned before finally being released and driven home by an officer. It's gotten easier to manage and deal with, but I think about it every day and it hurts. OP, I am so sorry you had to see and experience that firsthand. That sounds absolutely horrible. I mean, my mouth fully dropped while reading this. And I'm sitting at home, not even knowing the dude. I honestly don't know what to say other than I hope you got some therapy after that and are doing better now. Story 12. Drove through Mexico one time to get to Guatemala. Got stopped by the Mexican army at a drug checkpoint. Had a rifle stuck in my face and was ordered out of my vehicle. When you have a rifle in your face, you just do what you're told. They went digging through my car and found my traveling money. They asked me what it was for. It was several $100s. And then put it back. I moved it later because I thought there was a decent chance they'd call ahead and have me robbed. I never got robbed, so either they didn't or the ambush missed us. It wasn't incredibly terrifying, but it certainly makes you very conscious about what you're saying when held at gunpoint. Story 13. I was an oblivious teenager living in a bad part of Houston. Turned the corner walking my dog and ended up in the middle of what looked like a SWAT raid. I was on my phone and they were raiding the corner house. Had what was probably a greenhorn point their pistol at me and scream to turn back the way I came, or something. I turned and ran my butt home with my fat golden retriever huffing at my side. Point of the story, I learned to pay more attention even close to home. Yeah, I feel like you probably could have seen the SWAT cars and stuff a little bit earlier if you got off TikTok. Happy you learned your lesson though without getting hurt. Story 14. My dad was eating alone in a parking lot at night and got held up for some money. He handed it over and that was that, but he always tells me that the predominant emotion he felt when he saw the gun was seething anger. Like it pissed him off to be so helpless more than it actually frightened him. But just for a split second until the fear finally hit him. Somebody commented, "That's how I feel like I would handle it. Be really pissed off that someone is taking advantage of me like that." Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.